I raced at Croft last weekend and unfortunately I picked up quite a lot of damage. So I think I got hit 3 times in the right hand side of the car, and then once I got tapped once and then got hit a bit harder in at the back. The the tap and the hit in the back didn't do much other than it popped the bumper out. So this came out like that, and so getting it back into place is not difficult. The bigger issue was the doors. So the minor damage, minor damage I got was that I had a big black mark from a tyre on this door, and you can see I've still got some there. So I got this black mark off just with some cutting compound, and I did it by hand actually. Pretty easy to get off. I should be able to get that off just doing it by hand, but I may have to resort to my, my electric polisher. Yeah. The more major damage was here. So unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of this before I started to repair it. But the first thing was that this center of this panel was pushed back. And you can see that it's gone through to the metal there and the metal there. So I got hit pretty heavily there. I managed to get this just to pop back out. As you would expect, I took the door card off and then I just put my hand against this and pushed. At first it kept springing back, but I kept doing it over and over again in different positions on the door, and it popped and then it stayed out. Now, watching PDR videos, not that I know much about paintless dent removal, but they usually say that there'll be a ridge somewhere which you need to relieve to get it to stay in place because, the metal will have contracted or expanded or something. Now, I don't seem to have that. I do have a little bit of a ridge here, but quite honestly, this feels good to me. It feels as though it's in place, so I'm happy with that. Then I've got these two. Now, these were very deep. In fact, that one there, let's see if I can show you this. If you look just inside the door, can you see down there, there's a dent to the inner frame of the door, just there. It hit so hard that it actually bent the inner frame of the door. That was pretty bad. And then there was this one here. In both those cases, what I did was I used a piece of wood. I used this piece of wood and this piece of wood, just scrap wood that I had around, and a club hammer. And basically I just worked very slowly and carefully, bashing the back of this with the wood. Try not to, if you're going to do this, try not to do it on an edge, on a sharp edge of the wood, because that will cause it to crease outwards. And in fact, if you look just there, I've gone a bit over the top there and that has come out where I've been bashing it. But if you go very carefully, you can get it to come out a long way. To try and get this ridge back in here, I then switched to using pry bars. That one, and I've got a bigger one and I've got a smaller one as well. Again, you have to be really careful with those because if you use the sharp edges of those, it will shove a crease in the door and you'll see where the pry bar's been. So you have to go very carefully with those. If you buy PDR tools, they're rounded and what have you. So I think maybe I should invest in a few PDR tools I think I'm going to have to do this quite often. That's the thing. So I gradually worked against this and got it out. This one's been more successful than that one, but this one is more difficult because it's very hard to get access to it. So that was a much more difficult one to deal with. It still has paint on it from, whatever car hit me. and it's luminous green, and I know who it is. So yeah, so we'll obviously buff that off with some cutting compound, and that'll look better. So that was that. Now the other thing I wanted to tell you about was that after the accident, or after it had been hit and I came back, the gap round here between the door rubber and the door shut was big. It was probably 20 mil, 3/4 of an inch, something like that. And I did have a gap there before, slightly bigger than it is now actually. And that was because at Snetterton this car got hit really heavily in the side, Snetterton last year actually, and I put a new door on it, but it had actually bent the hinge down here. It pushed this hinge inwards, and I had to sort of use washers and goodness knows what behind the hinge to try and pack it out to bring the doors somehow into line. Now what I did this time was, behind this hinge there is a hole in the A-pillar. Is this the A-pillar? It is, isn't it? You call this, or is this, oh well, whatever, in this pillar here. And I put a piece of wood in through that hole like that, and then I bashed that with my club hammer, and that did move it a bit. But when I was doing that, I was thinking, I remember when I was a kid, I went on a school trip to the Ford plant at Dagenham, and they were making Mark II Cortinas, I think, at the time. So that ages it a bit, doesn't it? Sometime in the early 70s, I think. And what I remember was that when they were doing the panel alignment, when they were sorting out door alignments and bonnet alignments, they put pieces of wood down the edges of the doors, down this edge of the door, down the bottom here, and they would pull the door against the piece of wood to move it. So I thought I could do that. So what I did was I put a block of wood just there, and then I shut the door on it, probably in a bit further than that actually, and I shut the door on it, and then I pulled the door. And it's amazing how much I moved that bottom hinge by doing that. If you're going to do this, obviously go really steady. Don't ever try and do this on your road car, on your Pride and Joy Daily. This is probably a stupid idea, but for club racing and, you know, the sort of repairs we have to do, then I think this is suitable. You know, this is sort of midway between, you know, when you watch banger racing and they repair the car with a sledgehammer. So there's that end of the spectrum, and then there's the PDR people. Well, this is somewhere in the middle, using bits of wood. You can see that I've actually, where I've pulled it, I have put a very small dent in here, but quite honestly, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, that's not going to show, and it hardly matters. So that has given me this gap here, which is better than it was before I had, you know, the race this weekend. The panel gaps are a bit strange. I mean, that is a bit big there, and you can see that it does narrow as you go down the door. Strange thing is, though, at the front, if you look, it's even all the way down. So that is very strange. Just wanted to drop a quick note in here. In fact, the front gap wasn't as even as perhaps it looks in the video. And what I found was that if I pulled on the back of the door, the door hinges are obviously not, the nuts that hold them on are not, obviously not tightened up really tight, and something slipped. And in fact, the door alignment now is really good. So yeah, so it all worked out quite well. Yeah, it's good enough. So I'm hoping that by the time I polish this up, it will look presentable, certainly good enough for my final race at Donington in a couple of weeks. And if I want to do something about it you know, a bit, make it look even better still, then I can do something between seasons. So we've moved on a bit further now. What I've done is I tried to get the paint off just by scraping with my nail. I even tried very carefully with a screwdriver. It wouldn't come off. So I resorted to this 1200 paper, and I just rubbed over it until I got the the paint deposits off. I don't think, well, I know I haven't gone through the top level lacquer, so all it's done is taken a layer off of the lacquer. It was very dull, just like it'd look as if you were going to respray it. And then I used my electric polisher, and you can see it doesn't look too bad now. I mean, from a distance it'll look fine, and that one's come out really well. Let me move to the one at the front. I don't think I showed this before, but actually there was a mark here. It looks a bit weird, doesn't it, in the camera? That's a reflection of the my garage floor on this. It's actually quite shiny. Let's take this off the tripod and look. Yeah, so now you can see there was a mark here, and there was paint on this. So I've removed that, and then we've got this one here. Now this one here is cleaned up okay. But you can see that I definitely have gone through the lacquer here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some masking tape around this and just spray it with a rattle can. It won't look great, but I've done this before. See if I've done it on this side. No, I haven't done it on this side of the car. I did it on the other side of the car. And if you look close, you can see the line where I put the masking tape, but quite honestly, it's not going to make any difference at a distance. In fact, you can see where I've sprayed the rear of the bumper, where I've put a masking tape down here and sprayed this part because it was damaged. Yeah, so I'll be doing that. The side skirt, sorry, I said bumper, didn't I? I mean side skirt. The side skirt has got damage on it, and it does look a bit unsightly, so I have rubbed this down a bit. I'm going to touch this up with a rattle can because I've got some of this graphite grey, and then I'll do this bit as well. I'll touch this up just to make it look a bit better. It's also, you can see where the wheels, so the wheel must have gone up here across the top of the door and then down the other side, and that's where they must have touched. So I've got I've got paint deposits and scratches down here, but I'm not going to do anything about those at the moment. I'll just do this top bit. All right, I'll get it done, and then I'll finish off the video with a final look at what it looks like once it's all finished. Right, I've spent about 20 minutes doing this. I put a couple of coats of paint on, and then I put a couple of coats of lacquer on out of rattle cans. What I do is I peel the masking tape off as soon as it's going semi-hard, because I found that then you don't get such a rigid line around it. Now there is a line around it. I'm not going to take you up really close because I want you to see it sort of as people would see it from a distance. Obviously the reflections are all over the place because it is dented, whichever way you look at it. I've got a reflection of a bag. Let me get rid of this bag. I would show you this in daylight, but the trouble is it's dark outside now, so it's a bit late. But let's move this a bit closer. As you can see, it's not really, there's not much there now. You can see it. You can see the marks, but you know, from a distance it'll look fine. I definitely think I'm going to spray this and over there because that does sort of let it down a bit. Now the deep scratch that I had up here, I don't think you're going to be able to see that either. Let's put that light there. You can see I've coloured it in with some, I've just used a model brush and some paint, and you can see the other one on the other side. I'm going to have to put a couple more coats of that on there so that it disappears completely. Well, I say disappear, I mean it'll be a colour. And I think if I run over it, once it's gone really hard, if I run over it with the electric buffer, it'll probably look fine. Again, you know, if I don't put that light there to highlight it, you can see that it's pretty much sunk into the background. You can't really see it that well. So yeah, so I think it's all good enough for the next race. And this is as far as I'm going to take it. So you can actually see where I've masked round the side skirt and sprayed that a bit, but that's okay. I also touched in the bit at the front, so that doesn't look so bad at the on the side skirt at the front of the door. So that looks okay, and the bit in the middle. I even touched up the bits at the bottom so they don't show so much. I did this all with, so I did the back piece with the spray can, as you can see, and then the other four bits I did with the modelling brush. So all I do is I spray some of the paint into a yoghurt pot and then dip my brush in it and just touch it up. It looks okay. That white mark in the middle of the door, that's a reflection. That's not a mark. So I think that's it. We're all good. So I hope you found that interesting, and I look forward to catching you on the next one.